charla de las que tenemos hoy a la tarde acá en el Bernardino Rivadavia, dentro de el domingo, que es la última jornada de este tercer y más glorioso Crack Mambo. Tengo para presentarles a dos invitados de lujo. Uno juega de local, por ahí lo ubican, sobre todo los de Rosario, el maestro Ergo Sum. Lo recibimos con un aplauso. Creador e ideólogo de todo esto que estamos disfrutando tan intensamente estos días. Y a su lado tenemos al señor Ervin Rustemagic. También lo vamos a recibir. Para los que no lo conocen, es de Eslovenia, es editor y agente de artistas, ¿sí? Él trabaja viajando por el mundo, reuniéndose con editores de muchísimos países para ofrecerles los trabajos de los artistas a los que él representa. Y consigue que uno, que es dibujante o guionista, con su historieta, pueda publicar no solo en su país, sino también esa misma historieta se puede publicar en 10, 15, 20 países distintos, representados por su agencia. Y nos acompaña también David Alabarce, que nos va a ayudar con la traducción de las preguntas al inglés para Ervin, ¿sí? Así que bueno, vamos a empezar dándole la palabra a Eduardo, que nos cuente cómo lo conoció a Ervin, cómo fue su experiencia de trabajo, y por qué le pareció interesante que Ervin venga a compartir este Crack Mambo con nosotros.
Yo lo conozco a Ervin a través de Carlos Trillo. Carlos me dice que tiene un agente, ya había comenzado a trabajar, y que le parecía interesante que este agente nos representara con varios trabajos en el resto del mundo. Que era un tipo honesto, que era un tipo muy buen vendedor, pero claro, a mí me sonaba como uno más, Ervin Rustemagic. Sí. Ok, ¿y quién es Ervin Rustemagic? No, es una excelente persona. Bueno, a poco tiempo de eso, que habíamos quedado en que, ok, vamos a charlarlo, me invitan a la convención de Barcelona. Y allí me encuentro con uno de sus artistas principales, que él representa, ni más ni menos que Herman, el autor de Jeremías, Las Torres Bosques Maurí, África, un artista de aquello, un belga impresionante, y habla español. Coincidimos en firmas, en el panel de firmas, estaba justo al lado mío. Entonces comenzamos una charla y le digo, ¿puedo atreverme a preguntarte acerca de Ervin Rustemagic? Y entonces me dice, mira, te voy a contar algo que dice, no suelo repetir al resto de la gente. Yo por mi cuenta vendía, hacía mis ventas antes, 3, 4, 5 veces. Ganaba 10 pesos. Ervin Rustemagic se lleva un gran porcentaje de mi trabajo, pero yo gano 1000 pesos. ¿Por qué? Porque Ervin Rustemagic vende en lugares inimaginables que nosotros como artistas no podemos acceder. Si un tipo que llega a vender a Turquía, a Polonia,
Indonesia, Malasia,
sí, todos lados. Es decir, a veces que no es gran negocio, pero sirve para difundir, para promocionar. Entonces, digo, ahí me caí en la cuenta de que era un buen vendedor, porque nosotros habíamos lidiado ya con otros agentes que no movían el material, entonces no tenía sentido. Pero sí, cuando se lo dimos a Ervin, comenzó a verse. Ervin ha publicado trabajos míos que estaban en un cajón y ha salido en innumerables lenguas, y yo daba por descontado que ese trabajo no se iba a publicar más. Entonces, ahí se nota que tiene una vena de vendedor nato. Además de que además de eso, la otra faceta como representante y editor, digo, porque además tiene esa faceta, si él no entra en un lugar vendiendo el material que él representa, se asocia con un editor local. Entonces, lo saca el libro publicando en la lengua que él pretende. Quiere estar en ese país, va y se lo propone y sale. Y la otra faceta, la más importante, es que un hombre honesto paga regularmente como corresponde.
De los derechos de los autores.
Exactamente. Así lo conocí a Ervin. Y bueno, después tuve la suerte con el tiempo de que me invitara a llegarse a su casa y me atendió maravillosamente, y por eso me parecía que era importante tenerlo aquí, porque siempre tuvimos la visión del editor americano, que tiene otro concepto hacia el mercado, y él, yo sé que la visión de él es totalmente diferente, por supuesto, y lo conoce al dedillo.
Muy bien. ¿Nos escuchan? Había contado ya. A ver, ¿alguno de ustedes estuvo en la charla del jueves con Ervin?
Sí. Sí.
Varios. No vamos a empezar de nuevo con su carrera como editor, como agente, ya un poco Eduardo sintetizó. Vamos a preguntarle más sobre cosas de la vida, anécdotas que tienen que ver con el mundo de la historieta y esas cosas. La primera de mi parte es, yo a él cuando lo conocí hace como 20 años, me lo presentaron diciéndome, él es el manager de Alberto Brecht. Todavía está vivo Alberto Brecht, o sea, estamos hablando de hace como 20 años o más. ¿Cómo conoció a Alberto Brecht y cómo entabló la relación con él?
Well, particularly Alberto Brecht, I don't remember exactly. I think we met either in Angouleme or in Lucca in 1973, 1974. Yeah, because you have to, I have respect for all these artists, but it's very difficult to keep in the memory where I met whom. You know, after so many years, I'm 60 today, you know, and I'm I'm in this business for 41 years, so it's very difficult. Because we worked with more, or had a contact with more than 2,000 artists. And I know this because when I lived in Sarajevo, in my hometown in Bosnia, we were selling Christmas cards to all the artists, and it was artists and writers, not only artists. It was about 2,100 Christmas cards that we were sending in those days. So it's just for artists and writers. Those are not business cards for publishers. Publishers are different. So it's a lot in my head to remember. I was, first I want to thank my friend Eduardo for his nice words, but it's very difficult for me to listen to this because I'm just doing my job, you know. It's nothing extraordinary. I'm just doing the job that everybody else should be doing. I'm not somebody who is expert in some special things because I have some capabilities to do things differently. It's only a slave work. Before I started to have some health problems, I was working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so this is the result of all the success, if we can call it success, but also of my health problems. But I'm okay now. I'm somebody who keeps a relationship with all the people I like. For instance, just one example, there are hundreds of examples. There was an editor-in-chief of a company called Oberon in Holland, which was the biggest company in 1970s, 1980s. They were publishing a magazine called Depot that was sold, comics magazine that was sold in 400,000 copies a week. And we became very good friends, and all of a sudden he was fired. He lost the job and he disappeared. I went out of my way. I spent about 2 weeks to find his home address and telephone number. In those days we didn't have emails or anything, because I wanted to keep in touch with him. At that time they had about 6,000 employees. It's one of the hugest companies in Europe. So I finally found his home address. His name is Norbert van den Berg. And I called him up and I said, Norbert, I like you very much. I want to keep in touch with you. It doesn't matter that you are no longer in business. I just want to keep in touch with you. If for nothing else, that's just to send him a Christmas card or to call him sometimes. 3 or 4 years later, the management of the whole company changed, and they called back Norbert van den Berg, and he became managing director of the whole company. He called me up first, and he said, I want to continue to work with you, and please come to Holland. And so we continued. I just kept the connection. I never broke that connection. Nobody cared about him after he left. I was the only one who kept in touch with him. And then he wanted to change all the editors, so to bring his people there. And there was a big meeting in the company which lasted till midnight. And I said to him, I said, Norbert, will you do me a favor? After the meeting is finished, call me and tell me who is going to be chief editor of Apple. So he called me after midnight and told me the name of the editor who will start to work tomorrow, but nobody in Holland knew who is going to be the editor, and all the artists in Holland were curious, were calling each other, discussing. Nobody knew who would be the editor. I was the only one. So around 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I sent a telex. In those days we were working on telexes, you know, you are very young, you don't remember you don't know what it was, but telex is, you know, you type it and at the same time it's types over there wherever you connect to the telephone line. And I sent a telex to Fritz van der Heide, who was elected editor-in-chief, but he also didn't know. I said, Fritz, I'm very glad that you became editor-in-chief. I hope that we will continue to collaborate with Apple, also with you, and I hope that I will meet you in person at the Bologna Book Fair. And Bologna Book Fair was coming in 4 or 5 days from that day. Fritz there, he came to greet me. And I said, so you are already in Bologna? He said, I just came to see you. Who to hell you are? somebody from ex-Yugoslavia is sending him a fax congratulating, and nobody else in Holland knew that he became. But they didn't know about my relationship with Norbert van den Berg. I mean, it was private, so I kept a relationship with him. Nobody in Holland knew that he became, and he just came to Bologna to meet with me. He didn't have any business appointments or anything, so we had lunch in Bologna and everything went fine. Yeah. I'll give you another just short example because this became too long story. Yesterday, and my friend here, David, was present there, so he's the witness that I'm telling the truth. Somebody brought to me the editor, I'm sorry I forgot his name, the editor who is publishing Manara and IDV books.
Muñoz está publicando Manara y algo de Moebius. Sí.
No, I'm sorry, I forgot the name, yeah. And he started to tell me, some of you probably know him and you can ask, because I want you to understand that the relationships between people are the most important. And more important than anything else, information in the business. And I have all the information. You know, nothing can happen that I don't get information because I'm always informed by everybody. And he told me that he's publishing Manara. I met him first time. He told me that he's publishing Manara, that he's buying the rights for Manara from Panini. I told him Panini doesn't have rights any longer. The contract was cancelled. And then he told me that he's publishing IDW. American publishing house, IDW Comics. I told him, are you buying it from Christine Jensen? And he said yes. I said, Christine Jensen just lost the contract one week ago. It's Rick Jacobs from Circle of Confusion in Los Angeles who has the rights from the last week. Was it correct? David was there translating because I couldn't speak Spanish, you know.
Él está hablando de hacer las cosas bien.
Claro.
Está hablando
se equivocó interlocutor. Se equivocó interlocutor, claro.
Claro, nunca quieren hacer las cosas
claro,
bien.
están muy acostumbrados a hacer las cosas mal, pero porque les sale barato. Nadie se las cobra.
No, I just wanted to say that it's just hard work, you know. You have to keep contact with people. You know, you really have to be devoted to your work, to spend as much time as you can, and even more time than you can. You know, I have got 2 kids. My daughter is 30 and my son is 25. Fortunately, my wife raised them. She couldn't work because she had to raise the kids. And I didn't see them. I was 7, in those days when I lived in Sarajevo, I was 7 months on the road during the year, just traveling the world, and I just didn't see my children grow, you know. So you somehow have to lose some parts of the life. I mean, you don't devote it to your children, but fortunately my wife did, and I'm seeing them now, and they don't need me, you know.
Yo le quiero preguntar a Ervin algo que contó ayer en una charla privada, una forma de trabajar que tiene que me pareció muy interesante. Se refería a que él paga a quien tenga que pagarle, sí, paga sus facturas o a sus artistas o a quien sea en 24 horas. Pero no porque le gusta tener a la gente contenta, que por supuesto le debe gustar, pero tiene una explicación muy técnica en cuanto a administración y negocios.
When we have to receive an invoice, you know, because without invoice we cannot pay, of course. We always have problems with artists delaying invoices. We have to call them, to email them, to send invoices. But when we receive an invoice, each invoice in the last 41 years we were paying within 24 hours, and I'll explain you a reason why. First, if you have 30 days to pay an invoice or 60 days to pay an invoice, and if you have that money on the account, the interest which you can get in the bank is so minor, I don't even know how much it is, 0.0, I don't know really. But anyway, if it's a few $1,000s, then you can maybe buy this water or a cup of coffee for this interest. So it doesn't do you any good if you keep the money on your account for 1 or 2 months as far as interest is concerned. You know, and they wait 30 days to pay it last day, or I don't know, 45 days depending on the contracts. And they are piling up invoices. When you are piling up invoices, you never know how much money you have. You have to do accounting to sum up all these invoices and to see how much money from your account is not yours. So if you have 1 million on your account, 1 million pesos, and if you have invoices for 400,000 pesos, then you must always calculate, you know, I have what is on account is 600,000 pesos, it is mine, even if you have 1 million staying there, but there is a big pile of invoices. So if you pay it immediately, you know saldo is yours. And then the most important of all is that you don't get phone calls from people, from publishers, from printers, because we pay printers a lot, from anybody about the money. And those phone calls are consuming a lot of money, not my money, but the money of accountant, the money of my secretary, of other people, if they didn't receive the payment, or if the payment is delayed, or if they want money earlier, and they say, well, could you pay the invoice earlier? Nobody calls us because we just pay. There is a company in my city which is repairing our copy machine. And once we called them, because I was going to Los Angeles and we needed to make some color copies, and my secretary called them so that they can fix machine, that she can make copies for me, that I can bring them. And she called them and she looked at the watch. It took them 7 minutes to come to us because they were in the bank fixing their machine. And when they got our call, their boss called the guy in the bank and said, drop the machine, leave the bank, because bank is paying in 60 days. And they know that we'll pay them tomorrow. So she told me he came in 7 minutes to fix the machine.
Como anécdota, porque él es muy emprendedor. Y él es una de las personas que comenzaron Angouleme, el festival de Angouleme. Sí, Angouleme tiene más de 30 años, es una ciudad que se conoce por el festival de historieta que se hace en Francia, pero quiero que les cuente, porque ayer también lo estuvo contando, así de manera personal, la historia de por qué Angouleme y por qué en enero, que hace un frío de cagarse.
¿Por qué en enero? Yo el día que no la hagan en enero voy, prometo que voy.
Tiene una razón.
We tried. I started Angouleme together. It was not only me, you know, I was one of the people who started. It was Claude Moliterni, my friend Claude Moliterni, who died 2 years ago. Another was
Claude Moliterni,
un gran experto en historietas.
Yeah, somehow I was sympathetic to Claude Moliterni because Claude was publishing a magazine in 1969 called Phoenix. It was like fanzine, but very rich fanzine. I think it started in 1969 or 1968, I'm not sure. And then I contacted him from ex-Yugoslavia. I was very young in those days, I was 17. And he was shocked with all these artists I was working with, and then he invited me immediately to Paris. I went to Paris, then he invited me to Lucca because he was also one of co-organizers of Lucca. So I wasn't very big professional in those days, but somehow I was sympathetic to him again, coming from a weird country and being 17 years old, and we became friends very quickly. For you know, because this is a long time ago, how I started when I was 17. How did I know about Phoenix? How did I know about VNU and Oberon and all these companies? Maybe this could be interesting for you, because in those days we just had the telephones, no cell phones, no faxes, nothing, you know. And what I did, I didn't know how to find out because I couldn't travel. I didn't have a lot of money in those days, you know, I really didn't, and I couldn't travel around to find all these publications all over the world. I'll tell you a very simple thing that I did. What I did was...
Telepathy.
No. I sent letters to all the embassies in Belgrade, telling them that I'm a comic strip enthusiast and that I would like to know who are the comics magazines published in their countries.
Okay.
I got, in a very short time, I got about 50 or 60 packages full of comics magazines. Many of them were already read, you know, some of them were scratched or something was written of them, so my guess is that they had their children reading those magazines, must be. Somebody was reading those magazines. Those are not new magazines, so I didn't mind, you know, but they all were kind, sent me the letters and told me if I need any contact information or anything, they will help me. Late Claude Moliterni and organizing of Angouleme.
Volvemos al origen de Angouleme con el difunto amigo Moliterni.
We had a meeting in Lucca. We decided to meet in a place, Hotel Napoleon. You remember Hotel Napoleon in Lucca? Very late in the night with Hugo Pratt. Hugo Pratt was also there. He was helping us. I must say, he was helping us. He was calling some ministers in Paris, you know, to push all those city halls to help us with organizing. Hugo Pratt also was involved. It's fair to mention him. And we decided to start a festival in France similar to Lucca, but of course with festivals you need a support from the city or from the state so that you can organize it. We spent about a year trying to find the city, starting with Paris, who would be supportive for the organization of the festival. We went to Toulouse, we went to Grenoble, we went everywhere. And we just couldn't find anybody who was really, I mean, some of them did offer, but something very little, like 50,000 pesos, you know, that you can't really do anything from it. But we really needed a big budget. So we finally found a city near Bordeaux called Angouleme, which was willing to help us, mainly thanking to Francis Gru, who was the mayor of the city then and big fan of comics. So Francis said we can do it, but only if it is not done in tourist season, because you know this is south of France, so tourist season is very important to them. And then Francis told us he agrees with this, but it is not him who has to decide. It has to go to the committee, you know, and then they have to go to Ministry of Culture, French Ministry of Culture, to ask support from them, because the city alone cannot help. They can help with hotels and restaurants, but we needed a bigger support. And then Francis said, which month do you want? And we thought, well, maybe, we didn't want winter, of course, but we said, well, maybe September or April, or maybe March. And Francis said, you know, the weather here in March and in September is already nice, so I'm very afraid that people in the committee will say no, because he can apply for this only once. He cannot go twice, you know, first try this month and then try another month, you know. So if he proposes March or September and if they say no, it's no forever, you know, for good. You cannot go back and say. So we decided to go drastic. We said January, the last weekend of January, because we were sure that they cannot say no, because there is no tourism in January, you know, of where Bordeaux is, and there is the most famous vineyard, Saint-Emilion, called Saint-Emilion near Bordeaux. Hundreds of thousands of tourists are coming there, you know, for the wine and to see where the wine grows and to taste wine. And I'll give you now, just to end this, I'll give you an anecdote about Angouleme. If you go on internet now, and if you check Angouleme, you will find my name there as a member of international jury in Angouleme 1 and Angouleme 2. And then I stopped. I didn't want to be. If you want to ask me why, I'll explain to you why. Do they want me to explain why?
¿Quieren saber por qué se bajó del jurado internacional?
You know, in France, France is, I don't know, maybe some of you traveled to France. France is a very particular country when it comes to lunches and dinners and everything. You know, for instance, just businessmen in France, they agree on a lunch tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and then they have lunch with you till 5 o'clock. They get drunk, you know, with 2 bottles of wine, and then say, okay, let's meet tomorrow and we discuss business tomorrow. Wine is very important part of the table in France. Meetings of international jury in Angouleme were starting after dinner, but after dinner in France means very late, because dinner starts at 9, 9:30, sometimes 10 o'clock, and it lasts very late till 12, 1 o'clock. And then we would go in a city hall. There was a room for the members of jury, and Francis Grew, the major at that time, he was the president of jury, and I remember most of the people were going for jury. And then we would go at 1:30 to have jury meeting. I was 20 then. You have to keep this in mind. But 3 or 4 bottles of wine on the table. Because they first want, before we start to talk, we have to drink all that wine. And I never, I don't drink alcohol, I just work, you know. And especially in those days, I was 20. And we were sitting for 1 hour, 1.5, and I was sitting, you know, a young boy there waiting for them until they killed all those bottles of wine. Therefore, I convinced them for some awards which that we were not thinking about, you know.
Cuando empezaba la discusión ya estaban todos un poquito volados, entonces él los convencía de dar premios que ni sabían de qué se trataba, se le ocurrieron a él.
Yeah, and then we would end up going to the hotel at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I did it. And I did it first year, I did it second year, and then I told Francis Grew, the third year I really can't do it anymore, you know, I just was fed up, and there was a little argument, but they understood, you know, I just... So you are satisfied about my story about...
No, pero yo te tengo que preguntar otra cosa.
Sorry?
A ver, hace 30 años cuando Angouleme no existía, sí o sí se tenían que bajar un poquito las pretensiones, por no decir una guarangada, y fueron a pedir enero. Ahora que ya Angouleme está consagrado como uno de los festivales más importantes de Europa, ¿no se puede renegociar con otros intendentes, otros ministros de cultura, alguien un poquito más permeable para mover el festival a fechas donde la temperatura no sea tan asesina?
No, I'm too old now for it.
Dicen que por ahora le dicen que...
No, que es muy viejo.
Ah, que demasiado viejo.
I was full of energy in those days, you know. But you know, there was one thing with Angouleme which really made me. Well, I should be happy and unhappy at the same time. Maybe some of you can guess that book. When I was trapped in the war in Sarajevo.
Ah, we're going to talk about that.
Okay, but let me. We'll right now.
Vamos con una.
Can I start with Angouleme?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Angouleme is in January, and I was trapped in the war with my family in Sarajevo, and they all were worried about me, what was going to happen. And then they were making, and it was 20th anniversary of, I've got it in my throat, of Angouleme. And I didn't know anything about it. I knew about it as only when I came out from the war. They dedicated that Angouleme and the book in the beginning, they dedicated to me. And when I saw it, I said, did they think I was going to die? So it was as a farewell, you know. So that book, I didn't want to have it. Somehow, I'm not a believer, I don't believe in anything, you know. But when I saw it, it's like to somebody dead, you know. So they dedicated the festival, 20th anniversary of the festival, they dedicated it to me. And it was really hurting for me, you know.
Decimos, tiene más agujeros que ventana de Bosnio, y es así, tiene la historia window. The Bosnian window.
I never heard it.
Oh.
Great.
Lo cierto es que un amigo de él, al que supongo que todos escucharon nombrar, que también es un autor muy importante al que él representa a nivel mundial, es el maestro Joe Kubert, ¿sí? Todos conocen o escucharon nombrar a Joe Kubert, o por lo menos a los hijos de Joe Kubert, los más jóvenes. Lo cierto es que Joe Kubert estaba muy preocupado por Ervin, porque había perdido contacto con su representante y su amigo. Y entonces recibía muy de vez en cuando un fax que Ervin le lograba mandar desde las ruinas de su oficina, que había sido devastada por los bombardeos, y eso se convirtió, ese testimonio de la odisea de Ervin y su familia, se convirtió en ese famoso libro que todo el mundo alguna vez escuchó, que se llama Fax from Sarajevo, ¿sí? Que eran los faxes que recibía Joe Kubert de su amigo, contándole que todavía estaba vivo a pesar de todo, y es la crónica de la supervivencia de Ervin. Pero ahora, en vez de que nos la narre Joe Kubert con sus hermosos dibujos, nos la va a narrar él con sus palabras. Por lo menos de un modo más.
Aquel que no lo ha visto el libro está expuesto ahí en las vitrinas.
Sí, lo pueden ver.
Edición española.
La edición española de Planeta Agostini. Es un libro muy lindo. También está editado por Dark Horse en Estados Unidos, ¿verdad?
Dark Horse,
sí. Y no sé si reeditado por DC. No, todavía no. Lo reeditó DC, Faxon Sarajevo, en la colección de Kubert. No, todavía no. Bueno, escuchamos. Una especie de crónica de tu supervivencia en la Sarajevo bombardeada, parecida a lo que nos contó Kubert, pero en tus palabras.
Yeah, but isn't it easier to read the book?
Es más fácil leer el libro. Sí, y los dibujos son más lindos que mirarnos a nosotros también. Pero bueno, no, contanos un poco de tu vivencia personal. ¿Cómo fue estar atrapado en esa zona de guerra que hasta hace unas semanas era tu barrio y de pronto pasó a ser
por ejemplo,
un lugar de combate?
¿Cómo te llegó a vos la guerra? Porque de un día para otro se encontraron de que el vecino, que era serbio, que con el que charlabas todo el tiempo, un día viene como para querer matarte.
You know, I'm not a person of the past. I don't like, well, those anecdotes from Angouleme that I was asked to tell these questions, but on my own I never do that. Also, war is something I don't like to go back and talk about it because it brings very bad memories. You know, a lot of my friends were killed, their children were killed. And it's very hard. I go to Sarajevo several times, 2-3 times a year, and sometimes I don't want to see some people, you know, because all they do, they cry, and I feel somehow guilty because my children are alive and their children are not alive.